Okay, maybe 5 minutes later we will start this meeting.
Okay, no problem.
And the participant of this lecture, not only from the international pass, but also the regular pass. So maybe if several students give question by bahasa. Okay, Dr. Zam, we start now.
Okay. Can you start now,
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, Honorable Dr. Mokhtafizam bin Mokhtar from UUM College of Law, Government and International Studies, Kolbis, University Utara Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks be to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who always gives grace and help to all of us. Thank you very much, Dr. Zam, for your time to deliver the lecture today. And first of all, I would like to welcome to Dr. Zam, welcome to UMY, although by online meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a special day for us because we have a special guest from UUM who will give a lecture on Malaysia political system, Dr. Mokhtafizam Mokhtar. And our lecture today is a series of visiting lecture between UUM and UMY, especially between Kolbis and the Department of Government Science, Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, in the study of Constitution and state institution, we have been discussed about Indonesia government system. Also, we discussed about the United States and United Kingdom government system. And today we will discuss the Malaysia political system. Malaysia and Indonesia have some similarities in terms of culture, and the territory of both countries also very close. A part of the country, the territory of the both countries border directly. For example, district Sarawak and Sabah of Malaysia, and also Kalimantan of Indonesia, especially north, west, and also east Kalimantan. And there are different political system and also government system between Indonesia and Malaysia because of differences of historical differences between these countries. Indonesia was a former Dutch colony and Malaysia was a free British colony, and this historical background influenced the political and government system implemented in both countries. And how about the Malaysia political system and also the government system? In detail, will be reported by Dr. Mokhtafizam Mokhtar. And the time for Dr. Zam is about 16 minutes, 1 hour, and will followed by a question and answer session about 30 minutes. But I inform you, Dr. Zam, that the participant of this course not only come from the international class, but also the regular class. So maybe during the question and answer session, if student will ask using bahasa asing, it's no problem. Ya. Bagi mahasiswa juga silakan nanti bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, tidak menjadi masalah karena Indonesia dan Malaysia mempunyai bahasa yang sangat dekat, ya, bahasa Indonesia dengan bahasa Melayu. Okay, thank you very much, and the time is yours, Dr. Zam. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to Dr. Titin, Honorable Dr. Titin, and together with all beloved students from Indonesia, from Universitas Muhammadiyah Malang. So thank you very much again to UMI too, inviting me, sharing my point of view, which is related to the democracy that what we're practicing here in Malaysia, right? In whatever situation, in terms of what circumstances that we have, Indonesia also practicing the same thing, method of democracy, but maybe it's quite different from Malaysia. We are practicing in terms of parliamentary democracy, but in Indonesia, still practicing the democracy, but it's more to the presidential democracy, which is the citizen can choose directly who will be the leader. But here in Malaysia, we can just choose the party. So meaning to say, whoever have the majority vote in the House of Representatives, in the Parliament, so that political party can be appointed to be the president or to be the prime minister. Okay, I'm sharing my slide, Dr. Titin. Dr. Titin, can you see my slide or not? I'm sharing the slide.
Yeah.
You can see the slide, eh?
Yeah.
Because I'm not really familiar with this. Okay, so this is my slide. I'm seeing here my slide is totally zero, so I thought I'm not sharing anything. Okay. So I'm going to discuss, this is the thing that I'm going to discuss, which is related to the democracy that we're practicing in Malaysia, okay, political system in Malaysia. What we have in terms of introduction as a whole, in whatever situation that a country practice, we have a lot of different form of government, as I mentioned earlier on. Which is related to Malaysia, we are practicing the parliamentary democracy, which written documentation, right? In Indonesia, they are practicing in terms of the presidential democracy. And some other country, even though they are practicing a democracy, but still we don't have one institution or one country that really practice the great democracy what we have right now as practice in the world. In United States of America, for example, they claim that be the best practicing the separation of power in terms of practicing in terms of the executive, legislative, and judiciary. Right? Somehow, if you are looking at what been mentioned by Machiavelli in terms of theory, in terms of the political system, in terms of the separation of power, it should have in terms of three branches of item, which is referring to the executive, refers to the prime ministers, to the president, okay, and then we have legislative, person who involved in terms of implementation of law, for example, and then we have a judiciary, which the judges will make interpretation of the law as a whole. But somehow, if they are claiming that they are practicing the whole 100% of totally democracy, but it's hard for us to accept it because some situation, the president, known as executive, still have a room to involve in terms of making a vote, in terms of giving a veto power. So somehow we cannot say that the United States are practicing the whole of 100% of totally democracy. The same thing goes to Malaysia. We are practicing separation of power, executive, legislative, and judiciary. But the problem is, this is what we are practicing from the independence. Right? We are practicing the separation of power, but in terms of practicing it, okay, we have what we call as fusion of power. Executive will be the same person as a legislative. Why it happened? Because in the constitution it mentioned, if you want to be the prime minister, if you want to be appointed to be a minister, you should have a seat in the parliament. So meaning to say, parliament known as a legislative. Okay, so as a legislator, they will need to have a seat in the parliament. So once they have a seat in the parliament, then only they can be appointed to be the prime ministers or even the ministers. Okay, so it's clearly stated in the constitution. So that's why we're saying that in Malaysia, even though we are practicing the separation of power, but then we are still remaining the fusion of power. Okay, in bahasa we call it as pencantuman kuasa between executive and legislative, except for the judiciary, they will be separately different from executive and legislative. But again, if you want to question about the practicing of separation of power, and again, the Prime Minister also been given the authority and power by the Constitution to nominate the candidate to be the Chief Justice of Malaysia or even the Attorney General. Okay, that's clearly stated inside the Constitution. So again, executive still have a room in participating and even involved in that giving a nominating for the candidates. But again, the nomination from the prime ministers, but the appointment will be done by the Yang Tuan Agong, the king and the rulers for the Federal of Malaysia. Okay, so we have different type of government in terms of practicing democracy. Some of the country that we have in the world, they are practicing in terms of authoritarian democracy. Some of them are going to practice in terms of communism, what we're practicing, closed door policy, as what been practiced by North Korea, for example. So a lot of method of government that they have, and depends on the the politician, and it depends on the culture, and depends on the people for that particular country. So that's why we still have what we call as a capitalist, we have a socialist, and we have a communism too, even though they are not practicing 100% communism, but still the ideology is there. Okay, the political perspective, how they are governing their government. We can see the closed door policy, so it's quite hard for other country to have a good relation with some country that are practicing the closed door policy. For example, North Korea that I'm mentioning just now. Okay, so this is among the system that we have, form of government that we have. We have in terms of democracy, we have a monarchy, the king and rulers as the system in the country. Autocracy, federal, unitary, what we're practicing in Indonesia too, and parliamentary system, what we have here in Malaysia and some other country in the world. Okay, this is the population that we have in Malaysia. This is what I did mention during my opening when we are inviting Dr. Titin to present and giving a lecture to UUM, which we have only 22 plus minus to 33 million of people in Malaysia compared to Indonesia. This population only covered Jakarta only. Right? So this is the population that we have in 2017. The Malays and Bumiputras, 68.8%. They are the majority. The Chinese, 23.2%, Indian, 7.7%, and others. Others meaning to say we have the Sabah and Sarawak, Borneo, such as Dusun, Kadazan. So they are the part of the population that we have in Malaysia. So clearly stated here that Malay and Bumiputras, they are the majority in Malaysia, but the population is population in terms of the area of the town, in terms of the area of the village. So different population compared to other what we have here in Malaysia. Okay, to make it sharp and clear, what we have in Malaysia, the politics of Malaysia take place in the framework of parliamentary democracy, democratic constitutional monarchy, ataupun kita kenali dia sebagai demokrasi berparlimen, raja berperlembagaan. Why did we mention the constitutional monarchy? We still have king and rulers in 9 states in Malaysia. Other 3 states which is under the federal territory, they will have no king and rulers. To Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the head of federal will be the head of the country. And we have another 4 states which been governed by the governor. So meaning to say this country, they don't have what we call as the king. They just have a governor to organize and to take in charge of the country, which is Sabah, Sarawak, Penang, and Malacca. Okay, so 3 states and 3 federal territories. In addition, 13 states, we have 9 states governed by the kings and rulers. Okay, so the king still have the power, but the power is very limited compared to what we have here in somehow what we're practicing in Indonesia, for example. Okay, Indonesia in terms of unitary power, there's more in giving authority and huge power to the president. But here in Malaysia, the king is just a symbol. Okay, the executive power belongs to the. In state, we have Menteri Besar or the chief ministers, but in federal, we have the prime minister. So they are the individual and they are the person who really controlling the state rather than the king. They just have plus minus only 3 discretion. It's more to discretion power. Discretion ni kuasa budi bicara. Okay, so meaning to say, this discretion power belongs to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong as a federal head, or the state for the king. Okay, so what are the 3 discretion power belongs to them? The first one, which is related to either he, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, intend to appoint that particular individual to be the prime minister or not to be the prime minister. We have a few examples which is related to the issues. Instead, for example, we have the state election in 2008. Okay, during that time, the Prime Minister already appointed this individual to be the chief, the Menteri Besar of the state, but the king doesn't accept the appointment. So it's belong to the king to appoint because the decision power belong to the king. Okay, so the nomination by the Prime Minister been rejected, and the king will have another candidate to be the Menteri Besar. So the same thing that happened in Terengganu. Okay, and another case the same year, the same election, it happened in Perlis. The Prime Minister intend to have this individual to be the Menteri Besar, but again, the king of Perlis doesn't accept the proposal. So it rejected the proposal, and the king replaced by other individual. And of course, whatever name been mentioned by the king should be supported by the executive. Okay, so meaning to say the king have the power. Either they want to accept or not to accept the appointment of that particular individual to be the key, to be the prime ministers in the federal, or to be the Menteri Besar or the chief ministers in the state. Okay. The second one, which is related to the dissolution of the parliament, pembubaran parliament. You can see if some of you, or maybe some of you quite keen in the politics, you can just see, go through what method of democracy we have, what are the situation we have in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Asian country. Okay. Okay, four state governed by governors, while the executive power by the chief ministers. So this is the state that I mentioned just now, don't have a king and the rulers. Okay. Between, if you have any question during I'm delivering my speech, it's okay. You can just ask, you can just stop me and ask me a question. I love to have a question from all of you. Okay, this is, I just showed you an example, what we have here, the state of Malaysia. The right-hand side is Sabah and Sarawak, known as the Borneo. Further down, Indonesia, Kalimantan. And I heard this Kalimantan will be part of the administrative capital, which been organized by President Jokowi. Okay, they are going to transfer it to Kalimantan. And of course, if this issue happen, yeah, you have a lot of people in Indonesia. Of course, you have a different point of view. The same thing goes to Malaysia. During Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir that particular time, intend to shift the administration capital from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya. Okay, most of the people didn't agree, but once it's been implemented, by hook or by crook, either you like it or you don't like it, support it in terms of making it fluent in terms of the transitional. Okay, and then the left hand side, you can see we have Johor, Malacca, the purple one. That is the state don't have a king. They have a governor, including Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, and then we have Pahang, Selangor, Terengganu, Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya, Kelantan, Perak, Penang. Penang is one of the country also don't have a king. So 4, Sabah, Sarawak, Malacca, and Penang. So the rest have a king. 9 of the state have a king. So the king will be the head of the state, and should be advised by the Menteri Besar, or the state who don't have a king. Then the governor will be advised by the Ketua Menteri, chief minister. Okay. Okay, Malaysia, we are practicing the constitutional monarchy, democracy berparlimen. So meaning to say, the constitution clearly stated, if the parliamentary democracy and election should be taken place regularly every 5 years. Okay, no matter what, either you like it or not, then the maximum you will have for that particular government to govern 5 years. So except what we have here in 2018, the Pakatan Harapan for the very first time able to to ensure that Barisan Nasional collapse, being a government. Then they are the government, the Pakatan Harapan, they are the government of the day. and they only able to be a government less than 2 years, and they have only 22 months in practicing their power to run the country as a government. So after that, been taken, I'll show you later on, which is what happening in 2018 and until now, what are the situation that we have. Okay, so basically every 5 years you need to have an election. Okay, if less than that, it depends on the Yang di Pertuan Agong. Like say, normally the politician will look if this situation good for them to run the election, and they will win that particular election, and of course they will ask from the Yang di Pertuan Agong, even though it's less than 5 years. It happened before, meaning to say 3 years time, then they intend to do the election, because that is the situation where the support of the people will be strong, and they can continue to be a government. Okay. And His Majesty the Yang di Pertuan Agong, currently the 16th since the Malaysia independence on August 31, 1957, the 16th. So the transition of the Yang Pertuan Agong also is another story which is related. We have 9 Malay kings and rulers. So how are you going to appoint them? Because they are capable to be the Yang di Pertuan Agong. So the constitution did mention every 5 years, each of the state they can nominate, they can be the Yang di Pertuan Agong as long as the Conference of Rulers agree with them. So Conference of Rulers, they are the group of the King and the Sultan. So 9 of them form this Conference of Rulers, Majlis Raja-Raja. So this Conference of Rulers will decide who will be the Yang di Pertuan Agong, who will be the Deputy Yang di Pertuan Agong, and who will be the next Yang di Pertuan Agong. So it depends on the Conference of Rulers. Either they agree or not, everything will go from the Conference of Rulers. Okay, so the same thing, the Yang di Pertuan Agong have 5 years to be the government, to be the Yang di Pertuan Agong, and the Deputy Yang di Pertuan Agong also will have 5 years in service before they change to other candidates to be the Yang di Pertuan Agong. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the Yang di Pertuan Agong, they are is the state, the head of the state. Okay, the head of federal. In Constitution did mention about that. And the Prime Minister of Malaysia is the head of government. They have 2 different roles and 2 different authorities. Okay, so the Yang di Pertuan Agong just as a symbol of the head of the state, while the executive power belongs to the Prime Minister. So meaning to say the Prime Minister will have a lot of power, executive power, compared to the Yang di Pertuan Agong. Okay, if you ask me why it happened, because we are practicing the constitutional democracy. It's mentioned in the constitution. So the executive power will go to the Prime Minister. Okay, executive power exercised by the federal government and 13 other state government, and federal legislative power is vested in the federal parliament and 13 state assemblies. So anything happen, anything they want to discuss in terms of the policies, in terms to amend the policies, to amend the constitution, for example, you need to bring it to the parliament. Okay, so the parliament will decide. If majority of the parliament agree or 2/3 of the parliament agree, then they can amend that particular rules and regulation which is related to the act. Okay, member of parliament we have right now. Actually, the member of parliament, they should have 222. Okay, 222. That is the House of Representative that we have in Malaysia. Okay, House of Representative ataupun dikenali sebagai Dewan Rakyat. Okay, and another House of Senate, they have 70 of them. Okay, so House of Representative, they have only 5 years, and House of Senate, they'll have 3 years, and another term, 3 years. So meaning to say they're able to have only 6 years to be the member of the House of Senate. So after the second term, you cannot be House of Senate anymore. Okay, you cannot continue to be, because the maximum you will have only 6 years. So meaning to say 2 terms. Okay, the judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislative, though the executive maintain a certain level of influence in appointment of judges in the court of law. So this is what I'm mentioning to you, the earlier part just now. All right. The judiciary, even though you are saying that they are a separation of power in term, there's no interruption from the executive, from the legislative, but again, in term of appointment, in term of nomination, it will go to the executive. So once the Prime Minister nominate, the Yang Dipertuan Agong will appoint. Okay, if the Prime Minister doesn't nominate, so the Yang Dipertuan Agong cannot simply choose any other people to fulfill that particular post. For example, the head of judge, the High Court of Federal of Malaysia, the Attorney General, Peguam Negara, so etc. So it's clearly stated inside the Constitution, the nomination must come from the Prime Minister. Okay, so that is what we have in the Constitution right now. So what type of government that we have in terms of being practiced by Malaysia? Okay, Malaysia is a federation of the 13 states operating within a constitutional monarchy parliamentary system and categorized as a representative democracy, democracy berperwakilan. Why we mention it as a democracy, representative democracy? Because they've been appointed as the member of parliament and they should voice out what the issues and what been mentioned by the citizen or the people at that particular parliamentary area. Okay, for example, if he is from Kubang Pasu, member of parliament of Kubang Pasu, so he as an individual or she as the member of parliament need to bring whatever voice from the public parliament Kubang Pasu in the parliament on behalf of his area which is related to the parliament. Okay, the federal government of Malaysia inherited to and is created by the federal constitution and the supreme law of the land. So anything to do which is related to the constitution, if it's not consistent with the constitution, so the constitution will be void and not valid. That mentioned in Article 4 bracket 1 Malaysian Constitution. Anything after the independence which is not in consistency with the constitution, it will be void and not valid. Mana-mana undang-undang yang dibuat selepas merdeka sekiranya bertentangan dengan pelemagan persekutuan, maka dia akan terbatal setakat yang bertentangan itu. So that is a very powerful act which you cannot do anything if it is inconsistent with the constitution. Okay, is Malaysia a democratic country? Yeah, we are practicing the democratic system. We are practicing what been mentioned in the constitution, which is democratic. But if you're saying, is it 100% democratic? Again, it depends. Either you're giving them a room to voice out their ideas. What we have in the fundamental rights under Article 5 bracket 1 until Article 13 in Constitution, known as the fundamental rights. Okay, freedom of speech, for example, they've been given the opportunity to deliver anything they want to talk, to just voice out whatever they want to mention. No, okay, but it depends on the situation. You have a freedom of speech, but it depends on what you mention. If anything to do, because of the statement that you make, will create a chaos or will create an unharmonious situation in Malaysia, so action will be taken to you. Okay, so it depends on how. Politics of Malaysia take place in the framework of the federal representative democratic, the constitutional monarchy in which the Yang Dipertuan Agong is head of state and the Prime Minister is the head of the government. Okay, so this is clearly stated in terms of giving democracy in terms of choosing your member of parliament. You do the election, but how it been done, that will be another story. Okay. Main political party under Barisan Nasional. So this is the closely where I'm going to show to you. This is the government that we have almost 62 years before 2018. This particular government collapsed and lost their control to be a government. Okay, this is a huge party that we have in Malaysia, Barisan Nasional. But because due to the mismanagement, due to the corruption, due to the which most of the people didn't agree what been mentioned by the political party, so they changed it from Barisan Nasional to Pakatan Harapan. So this is a coalition. The coalition means during the independence we have three dominant and three big parties which come along together in Barisan Nasional. It is UMNO, and then MCA. UMNO referring to the United Malay National Organization, is referring to the Malay political party, and we have the Chinese political party known as MCA, Malaysian Chinese Association. And we have another one which is referring on behalf of the Indian of Malaysia, MIC, which is related to the Malaysian Indian Congress. So this is the main races that we have in Malaysia, Malay, Chinese, and Indian. Malay including what we have in terms of Bumiputra, Sabah, and Sarawak. Okay, so this is the component, and they managed to be the government for 62 years before they lost to Pakatan Harapan in 2018. And now slowly they are getting back to power, okay, because lack of experience in the Pakatan Harapan government, they have the ideas, but they are lack of experience. Compared to Barisan Nasional, they have 62 years controlling and manage the government. Okay, the political hegemony in Malaysia, it turned out that Barisan Nasional, especially the Malay elite, has managed to dominate the system in the government in Malaysia. So the Malaysia will have their victory and generals have been guaranteed selection. So meaning to say, for the past few years back, we have 60 over years, the Malay elites and the Malay people and most of the Malaysian we have here in Malaysia, they will not have any problem with Barisan Nasional. So the Barisan Nasional during that time, even Tun Mahathir also being Prime Minister as a Barisan Nasional political party in UMNO for 22 years, compared to Suharto. Suharto also, I think, almost 30 over years to be the president of Indonesia. So this is the individual we have quite some time to be a leaders in the country. So again, in 2018, again, Tun Dr. Mahathir, in the age of 90 plus, managed to be, for the second time, to be a prime minister. Okay, so the Malaysian and even the people of Malaysia didn't have any problem with Barisan Nasional. Yeah, of course, you cannot make everybody happy with you. But as long as the majority support you, then shouldn't be any problem for you to be a government. Okay, so as time goes by, maybe you're holding a power quite some time. You have quite long to be the political parties. You'll be a government. Then again, this situation and this culture finally infected you to be the leader in terms of involved with corruption, in terms of mismanagement. So whatever happened been looked by the people of Malaysia. So they are not giving their vote again to the Barisan Nasional for that particular time. But now you can see, because of the lack of the experience for the Pakatan Harapan, most of the ministers, yeah, they've been opposition for 60 over years, and suddenly, you can just say suddenly coincident, you be a government. It's quite difficult for them to run. Okay, so UMNO also is the dominant party, which is centered and supported by the Malay elites. Okay, the election result in the first election, we do it before the independence in 1955. Our independence on the 31st August 1957. So why should we do this election before the independence? Okay, so the answer is just want to show to the British that the Malay people, they managed to run their own country and compared to what been mentioned by British, the native people, the Malay people cannot manage the country. So this political party, this election prove it and show to the British that they managed to control and to take care of their own country. Okay, so this is the political party which involved during that particular time. We have PAS referring to the Islamic Party, State Party, the Labour Party, and the Progressive People Party. So the alliance candidate have 52 seats overall. They won 51 seats out of 52. So this is a very surprisingly, it's not surprisingly, it's very great in terms of the election result, which is quite hard to have only, you just lose one political or one parliamentary seat compared to you have 51. So this is a very strong government. If you're able to have this particular seat in the parliament, you will be the strongest political party. So whatever been done, whatever you want to do in the parliament, so everybody will support you compared what we have right now in 2018. Okay, they're able to won less than the different only less than 10 seats. So it's very difficult. So nowadays you can just see the political they are more in terms of how to gain power, how to got anything else which is related to the power. And so because of that, if somebody offer to you something, then they will go and support the other party. So because you just want the simple majority, that's why in any other country, if they're able to have the two-third majority or even they won the whole election, they love to have that result. Okay, because if you're able to have less than two-third majority or even a simple majority, you manage to be a government, but somehow you have extra one or two seats in the parliament, but it's not really strong. Anything can happen. So that's what happened in Malaysia right now. After the 2018, Tun Dr. Mahathir be a prime minister, and they have the Sheraton move to ensure that Pakatan Harapan government collapse, and after that been turned from Pakatan Harapan to Perikatan Nasional. So the prime minister be the Muhyiddin Yassin, and again Muhyiddin Yassin managed to be the prime minister less than 2 years. Okay, Pakatan Harapan they able to be a government for 22 months. But for this Perikatan Nasional, they're able to be the government for 17 months. So now we have another government, and the next election will be on 2023. One more years plus to go. Okay, back to the first election just now. Then we have, after the independence, we have our election in 1959 and then 1964. So until what we have right now, 2018. But until 2018, the UMNO and Barisan Nasional, they managed to be among the best government previously. But after the issues of the 1MDB, issues of the Prime Minister involved with the corruption, then the image of Barisan Nasional tarnished. Okay, this one I just show to you the result of the election. In 1964, the election won ranked 74 out of 104. So again, they managed to have the two-third majority, 85% in 1964, and then in 1974, Barisan Nasional able to have 87%, a huge win. So if the government is strong, I don't think the people will be angry with the government. But if the government is not strong and practicing a lot of unethical activities, so the people will start complaining and the people will start protests for the political parties or even the government as a whole. And then followed by the election in 1978, the victory of Barisan Nasional, 130 out of 154. Okay, and in 1992, 132 out of 154. Okay, so all these things will be a indicator to show that the people love to have a Barisan Nasional to be the government, and they manage show to the people that they're able to develop the country. But somehow, because of the attitude of the leaders, because of the corruption, for example, okay, involved maybe a few of them involved in the corruption, but finally, the whole political party will collapse, and they will not give their support again to this political party for that particular time. Okay, and then selected general election. While in the general election, okay, you can just see what I'm just showing to you here. The 13 election, 148, the 7 election, 148 out of 177 will be a strong government, right? 162 out of 162, more than two-third majority. okay, won 2004. I think that will be the highest achievement out of 1950. Just ignore the 1955 election. So 2004, this is the time that people give their support to the government, say their big thanks to Tun Dr. Mahathir to be the Prime Minister and replaced by Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi as a Prime Minister. So they show their appreciation to the government by giving 198 out of 219. It's a very big support from the people. And you will be a strong government. But the problem is during that time, the Prime Minister is not strong. So a lot of things happen and it didn't show you have the quality to be the Prime Minister during that particular time. So again, the government keep on starting, being mentioned by people, they start on accusing something and finally they are not giving more seats to the Barisan Nasional, which you can see in 12th election 2008, Barisan Nasional for the very first time, they only won 140 out of 222 seats. Okay, they're not getting the two-third majority. During this time, Najib is the Prime Minister. Okay, 13 general election. So you already have the flow. You already have the view. But once you're getting weak, then in 13 election, out of just in 12 election, you are getting 140 seats. In 13 general election, they're able to have 130 seats only. Okay, and finally in 14 general election in 2018, this is the result they have. The Pakatan Harapan coalition, they're able to have 124, Barisan Nasional 74, and Pakatan Rakyat 18. So meaning to say, for the very first time, the Barisan Nasional as the government before, they fail to form their government, and for the very first time, some other party during this time, Pakatan Harapan, able to be the government for 22 years. Okay, okay, so this is the graphic which I can just see the data which is related to the support and what will be the result of the general election in Malaysia during the first until 14 that we have until 2018. As you can see, for the very first time, the Barisan Nasional failed to form their government. Okay, Malaysia had a political party system since the first direct election and the first fast the post basis. So meaning to say they're able to choose their leaders, they're able to choose their member of parliament, and finally in the parliament they will discuss whoever have the majority vote, then that particular individual, the chairman of the political party should be appointed to be the prime minister. And of course the appointment will be done by the Yang Dipertuan Agong. Okay, the ruling party was the Alliance Party. Okay, from 1973, the successor will be the Barisan Nasional. Together with it, the Barisan Nasional served for 61 years and was one of the world's longest service government until it lost its power to Pakatan Harapan. There's no other political party in the world able and managed to run the country more than 60 years. Yeah. They are not being given the opportunity by the people. But Barisan Nasional been given the opportunity, but they fail to respect the people, and finally they collapsed to be the government in 2018, or specifically in 9 May 2018. It's a very tragedious decision. It's been celebrated by most of the people, okay, because you can just imagine Barisan Nasional control the country for 60 over years, and nobody expect Barisan Nasional will lose to any other political party, but it happened in 2018. Okay, the Pakatan Harapan during that time currently consists of DAP, Democratic Action Party, the People Justice, PKL, National Trust Party, Amanah, Warisan, and UPKO. So this political party, they formed the coalition, and the coalition known as the Pakatan Harapan, right? And this coalition managed to have the majority seat in the parliament, right? Okay, the coalition government to the country from 10 May 2018 until 24 February 2020, when Dr. Mahathir resigned as a prime minister. So why Dr. Mahathir resigned as a prime minister? Because some of his political party from his own party joined other group and they formed their own political party and they have the majority in terms of forming the new government known as the Perikatan Nasional. And the Yang di-Pertuan Agong call upon each member of parliament asking their support, who are they giving their support to, because during this time we have the 2020 pandemic COVID-19, so the parliament is closed. The emergency declaration been announced by the government during that particular time. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong call upon all these members of parliament, giving directly to Yang Agong who he will support to be the prime minister. So 221, except for Tun Dr. Mahathir, been called upon, giving their opinion and their support. And finally, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin able to be the prime minister on behalf of Perikatan National Government. Okay, in February 2020, so this is what I'm mentioning to you just now, the collapse of Pakatan Harapan as the government with the resignation of the Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir after in power for 22 months. Okay, so the Prime Minister resigned and creating a power vacuum. So it's very hard. And this is the very first time it happened in Malaysia. It's not happening. The prime ministers and even the Yang di-Pertuan Agong not facing this situation and not have any experience which is related to this situation. So you have a power vacuum there. So what happened? So once the Tun Dr. Mahathir go and see the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, saying that he's going to resign to be the prime minister, saying that he have not enough support to be the government. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong accept the resignation and appoint Tun Dr. Mahathir to be the interim prime minister for a time being. Once the Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoint the new prime minister, then Tun Dr. Mahathir can just resign for the particular position. Okay, and finally replaced by Perikatan Nasional, led by Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin as a prime minister. And again, the Perikatan Nasional collapsed. So this, which is related to power, related to the strategies, which is related to the pandemic COVID-19. Okay, so after 17 months, Pakatan Harapan administration feel a similar fashion, set off another round of political negotiation in search of a new prime minister. So this is the latest one that we have. And finally, the same situation been used by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, call again the political party, call again the chief of the political party, individual, saying which individual they support to be the prime ministers. And Ismail Sabri finally been appointed to be the prime minister of Malaysia. 114 out of 220, because supposed to be 222, but two of member of parliament passed away, and there's no by-election been done because due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So they just left 222. Furthermore, it's only less than 2 years before the next election. Okay, so there's no by-election been done. Out of 220, 114 support him to be the prime minister, and finally he been appointed to be the prime minister until now. Okay, this is the general election 2018 overview. And what happening here in Malaysia, so it's also for the very first time, Okay, it's not through the general election, it's just through the member of parliament. They decide who they want to be and with whom they want to be and who will be appointed to be the prime minister. It's not through election. So a lot of people are quite frustrated with the situation, even though they are frustrated with the decision being made by member of parliament. But what been done by them, they are following the constitutional. So even though it's first time uh, been happen like that, but it's not a weird thing because everything been followed in the constitution. Okay, so these are the political parties that we have: Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, PKR, DAP. So this is the, I think in Indonesia you have more party, a variety of party, but in Malaysia we have this, the main and dominant. This is not including the Sabah and Sarawak in terms of UKO or any other party. Okay, even though Malaysian political have been relatively stable, okay, but the government, the ruling party, the administration are with few countervailing forces. Okay, so however, since the 8 March 2008, the general election, the media coverage on the country politics have noticed increase. So due to this, media social also affected with the result support of the people. But before this, before 2008, the media social is very not totally been used by the people. Now anything happen in Indonesia, less than 1 minute can be shared with Malaysian people. So the same thing goes to the Malaysia, Indonesia, or even we can just know what happening in Palestine. We can know what happening in United Kingdom, United States, and just happening less than 1 minute, 1 second, a few seconds, you can just receive anything. So because of that too, giving the fresh and energy for the people to have the information rather than previously you just look at the newspaper and the newspaper is under the government, and of course the issues and the thing been mentioned in the newspaper will be supporting the government. So the media social, you have a lot of things. You are saying that you are not doing that, and then they will send you a video directly your negotiation with that particular individual. So how are you going to deny it? So that is the advantage, the good thing in terms of the media social. The politician cannot bluff the people, cannot cheat the people because of the situation. Okay, so after the 14th general election, media freedom was promised by the new government of Malaysia. For me, if you are looking at the new freedom in terms of by the new government, it should have the freedom in terms of the media reporting the right issues and the right news rather than cheating and bluffing the people, which is not the true thing, just mentioning about the fake thing. Okay, so this is a few quotes by, this is by Plato. Wise people speak because they have something to say, but fools because they have to say something. Okay, you can just see the differences between that. Also from Plato, if you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you are doomed to live under the rule of fools. Kalau tidak ambil pendekatan terhadap, you don't have interest in the government, then the stupid and fool people will run the country and will run the government. So this mentioned by Plato. It's totally right, which we can see what happening in the world today. Okay, I think that's all the time been given to me for 1 hour, 60 minutes. So we have a few minutes to go with the question and answer. So I just give back to Dr. Titin to proceed with the question and answer. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Zam, for your interesting presentation about the political system in Malaysia and also the dynamics of politics in Malaysia from the independence of Malaysia until now. Okay, let's continue with question and answer session. Please on your camera and raise your hand who want to your question, please. Please share, raise your hand. Maybe any question for Dr. Zam. It's very interesting material, very interesting topic about the Malaysia political system.
Yeah, Azhar Hafiz, put it in.
Oh yeah. Okay. This.
Ya, oke. Terima kasih banyak kepada Bapak Mokhtafizam Mokhtar dan kepada Bu Titin yang sudah memberikan saya kesempatan bertanya. Untuk pertanyaan saya, bagaimana seperti yang digambarkan pada politik atau situasi demokrasi di Malaysia, itu bagaimana situasi atau pandangan oposisi di negara Malaysia? Begitu Bu pertanyaan saya. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Dr. Zam can answer directly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Azhar bertanyakan soalan bagaimana pandangan oposisi berkaitan dengan situasi kerajaan yang ada. Okay, in somehow, so answering your question in Malay lah. Kalau kita melihat secara keseluruhan, kesimpulan dan juga apa juga yang berlaku dalam konteks mana sekalipun, tidak ada mana-mana negara bangsa yang ada yang akan menjelaskan tentang sokongan mereka kepada kerajaan once you known as a opposition. Kalau kita pembangkang, seterusnya kita akan pembangkang selama-lamanya. Kecuali ada sesuatu yang mungkin mengubah haluan kita untuk menjadi kerajaan, mungkin dari segi dukungannya, mungkin dari segi bantuannya, ataupun mungkin dari segi apa yang dijanjikan. Kalau menyokong kerajaan, pastinya kemudiannya kita akan lantik menjadi menteri sebagai contoh. Okay, kalau menyokong kerajaan, kita akan permudahkan urusan. Maka this is between individu and individu which is not enclosed. Kita tidak didedahkan dengan perkara tersebut. Tetapi kalau melihat kepada situasi di Malaysia tentang pandangan pembangkang, apabila banyak sangat berubah dari segi pemilihan daripada Tun Dr. Mahathir, Kerajaan Pakatan Harapannya kolaps, kemudian Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin juga tumbang kerajaannya. Kemudian sekarang Ismail Sabri. Jadi pembangkang melihat ini sebagai satu senario yang sekiranya isu politik ini dimainkan selalu, maka sukar untuk mendatangkan impact kepada politik, ekonomi dan sosial. And the most important thing, the people really bored with this politician. Rakyat sudah bosan dan jemu dengan ahli-ahli politik ini. Jadi mereka perlu bertindak matang dengan menyatakan agreement dan juga perlu menyatakan persetujuan kepada kerajaan yang ada. Maka pembangkang pun menurunkan satu MOU akan menyokong kerajaan. Tetapi apabila itu dibuat, kerajaan ada tindakan-tindakan yang dibuat sewenang-wenangnya. Apabila tindakan itu dibuat sewenang-wenangnya, maka pembangkang perlu memainkan peranan mereka bukan untuk membangkang tetapi untuk menegur kerajaan dengan faktanya, dengan asasnya agar tindakan-tindakan kerajaan itu tidak akan menjerumus ke arah apa yang pernah dilakukan oleh Najib sebagai Perdana Menteri dahulu dengan isu korupsinya, dengan isu mismanagementnya. Jadi ini antara perkara-perkara yang kadang-kadang kita melihat tarnish the image of the political party. Parti Barisan Nasional itu sebagai contoh, kan, sebagai satu parti yang hebat, sebagai parti yang banyak jasanya kepada negara. Tetapi disebabkan oleh beberapa individu, maka merosakkan parti itu secara keseluruhan. Dan kalau Azhar, saya melihat sekiranya opposition itu berterusan menyokong saja kepada kerajaan pun sukar juga. Perlu ada check and balance. Because in parliament we need to have that. You need to have a position to ask the government in whatever decision they make. Jangan kita berterusan menyokong tanpa kita tahu ia salah tetapi kita sokong juga. Jadi sukar begitu. Kita memerlukan satu bentuk masyarakat yang keharapan dengan melihat kepada perubahan-perubahan yang matang. The futuristic is there. Saya lihat dari segi Indonesia, pelajar-pelajar Indonesia, pelajar-pelajar Malaysia, mereka merupakan generasi muda yang mempunyai idea yang besar. Peluang ini perlu diberikan kepada mereka untuk membangunkan negara secara bersama. Okey, Azhar, terima kasih atas pertanyaan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zam. The next question. Silakan selanjutnya siapa yang akan mengajukan pertanyaan? Raise hand atau langsung? Okay, Dr. Yam, I want to give you a question about the parliamentary system in Malaysia. Indonesia also have the experience with parliamentary system in the early of our independence until 1959. Yeah, but the political condition with the parliamentary system in Indonesia is not stable. There is no political stability because the long term of the office of the cabinet just 3 months until 2 years. So there's a short term of the cabinet, so the cabinet cannot carry out the programmatic the program to develop Indonesia, to implement the development in Indonesia. How Malaysia to make the stability, political stability with the parliamentary system? That's my question, Dr. Zam.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Titin. It's very interesting. It's a very great question, which is related to the situation. I think in any country, which are practicing the democracy as a whole, it's very hard to have 100% support from the people, and even the member of parliament too, because they have their own integrity, they will have their own image as a politician, and they will have their own issues, which is related to the their focus and their ideology. That is the most important thing. But for me, ideology is ideology. Doesn't matter which political party that you are supporting. But the most important thing, how are you going to use that platform? How are you going to use that medium for you to develop the country, to enhance your country, to give a good support to your country, to give more job to your people, to create more investment in your own country, rather than you just give your support to certain circumstances, to certain individual in giving their opinion, and you gain something on that, which you will not gain anything for the country and for the nation. And furthermore, which is related to the development, FDI, for example, foreign direct investment. Are you going to do the investment which is related to you, giving benefit to your people, giving a benefit to your crony, rather than you give the development to all of the people that we have in the world, in terms of Indonesia, for example, in terms of Malaysia, for example, a lot of things can be done. Okay, a lot of things can be looked. We are not the people. Our culture is quite similar. We are not the people who are not respecting the people. Unless people didn't respect us, then still we have a room for us to be patient. But somehow, in certain circumstances, if too much, you're taking too much, and then you're doing a lot of things which is unethical, so people will not respect you anymore as a leader. So it's better to have a good and great leadership traits and style, rather than it's very hard to say, because each is related to our principle. Botitin principle and our principle as a academician, we want to see, and we love to see our students, once they graduate from universities, they're able to work. Right, so we love to have that student. We love to have in class, during class, a lot of questions being asked by the student. I love to have that. I have a lot of Indonesian students. Previously, before the pandemic, we have the mobility student together with us. The Indonesian give a lot of questions together with Malaysian people. So that is the culture that we have. in terms of giving a good and great for better Malaysia and Indonesian in the future. Okay, Bu Titin, that will be my answer to your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zam. Maybe any question from student? Please raise your hand. Ada pertanyaan, silahkan.
Bukan selalu dapat berjumpa ni, tanya aja apa-apa soalan. Apa saja yang berkaitan, walaupun tak berkaitan dengan anything you want to ask which is related to democracy, which is related, even though I didn't touch it in my slide or in my, you can just ask me a question.
Okay, any question? Don't afraid to give your questions. Jangan takut untuk bertanya, silakan.
Saya dengan pelajar-pelajar Indonesia ni, saya kagum dengan mereka kerana ramai yang seronok untuk bercakap dalam kelas ni, Bu Titin.
Iya, iya.
Mobility ni kan, saya selalu ni, kalau pelajar Indonesia, saya mau pelajar Indonesia berada dalam kelas saya. Kan?
Oke, silakan.
Tanya.
Silakan.
I use the bahasa, ma'am.
Oh, okay. It's no matter if you use bahasa.
First, bagaimana peran pemuda di sana terhadap election system di sana? Seperti kan di Indonesia peran pemuda itu sangat penting dalam menentukan pemimpin mereka, meskipun masih jauh dari kata proporsional terhadap pemilihan terhadap suara di Indonesia. Tetapi pemuda memiliki peran untuk bagaimana menentukan pemimpinnya di masa depan. Nah, pertanyaannya, bagaimana peran para pemuda di sana yang sudah memiliki hak suara itu seperti apa, dan presentasi pemuda terhadap pemilihan pemimpin di sana itu bagaimana?
Oke, terima kasih Satria. Bisa menangkap pertanyaannya Pak Dr. Zam?
Bagaimana summary soalannya, Bu Titin? Sebab suaranya itu tak berapa nih, saya tak berapa nih.
The question is about the role of the young people in Malaysia. Bagaimana peran pemuda dan pemilih pemula di dalam pemilu di Malaysia?
Okay, thank you very much, Dylan. Orang muda ini adalah merupakan orang penting. Itu sebab Bung Karno pernah menyatakan, berikan aku 10 pemuda, aku akan goncang dunia. Jadi itu matlamat dan juga apresiasi orang muda. Kalau kita lihat orang muda ini, Dylan, tenaganya kuat, tetapi dari segi amarahnya pun kuat juga. Tetapi kalau mampu untuk mempertahankan benda itu, dia tidak mendatangkan masalah. Kerana ideanya kritis. Kalau kita lihat dari segi kepimpinan pelajar, kalau kita lihat dari segi isu-isu yang dibawa oleh pelajar, maka kepimpinan inilah akhirnya kemudiannya akan dijadikan sebagai satu dukungan untuk menggantikan pemimpin-pemimpin yang ada. Saya suka melihat ini sebagai satu contoh kalau kita katakan pemuda. The problem is we normally will ignore the voice of the young people, especially if that particular voice criticize you as a government, and it happened in Malaysia. Syed Saddiq, kalau biasa dengar Bu Titin dengan anak-anak pelajar, beliau adalah seorang pelajar yang cemerlang, pernah ditawarkan beasiswa untuk belajar ke Oxford, Universiti Oxford. Tetapi disebabkan sifatnya mengkritik kepimpinan Najib sebagai Perdana Menteri pada ketika itu, maka peluang-peluang untuk melanjutkan pelajaran, peluang-peluang untuk mendapat beasiswa dan sebagainya dinafikan. Kemudian Syed Saddiq ini masuk politik dan akhirnya menyertai Pakatan Harapan dan menjadi Menteri Belia dan Sukan. For the very first time, the young people be the ministers of Ministry of Youth and Sport. Jadi peluang itu ada, dan kita lihat juga orang muda ini pun Kalau dibandingkan dengan yang sedia ada, jauh bezanya dari segi tenaganya, dari segi idenya. Tetapi biasalah, kalau yang well experienced ini, mereka akan memperkotak-katikkan saja orang muda ni. Tapi ini tak sepatutnya ada. Sepatutnya as a experienced politician, they should give a support to the young people. Because these young people finally will manage to to proceed with the government to be the next leaders after the old generation retired from the position. Jadi peluang-peluang ini perlu ada, bagi saya orang muda ini perlu diberikan peluang dan juga ruang yang lebih besar untuk, tetapi perlu ada dari segi kawalan-kawalannya, itu juga perlu ada. Perlu ada juga dimasukkan sebagaimana yang dibuatkan oleh the previous government, masukkan beberapa orang muda sebagai ahli parlimen untuk memberikan pengalaman kepada mereka, bukan menyekat kegiatan mereka apabila mereka mengkritik kepimpinan-kepimpinan yang ada. Okay, Dylan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zam.
Yeah.
Maybe any response from Dylan or the others? Ada pertanyaan lagi? Saya persilakan.
The Indonesia is still like lot of demonstration that held by youth Indonesia by the civil society or NGO. And how and what happened in Malaysia about that? Are they still demonstration about the government or the kebijakan di sana? Apakah mereka masih sering melakukan demonstrasi atau bagaimana?
Okay, how about the demonstration of young people in Malaysia?
How about what, Budidin? Sorry, I need your help here.
Demonstration.
Oh, demonstration. Okay,
Yeah.
demonstration in Malaysia.
Yeah.
If you go back, what happening previously in gerakan reformasi, masa itu saya ingat dalam 98, 99, dia bermula start Indonesia dengan minta supaya Presiden Suharto melepaskan jawatan sebagai presiden. Kemudian isu itu, sejarah itu, that experience, that issue hanging around together with the Arab Spring. Kemudian dia pergi ke Malaysia dengan gerakan reformasi. Pada ketika itu Anwar Ibrahim dipecat sebagai timbalan Perdana Menteri. Maka golongan-golongan muda ini memprotes. Bukan saja golongan muda, majoriti daripada rakyat Malaysia, termasuklah golongan-golongan muda. Kerana Anwar Ibrahim ini adalah seorang pemimpin yang dekat dengan mahasiswa-mahasiswa. Jadi mereka menyokong dan juga memberikan sokongan kepada Anwar Ibrahim pada ketika itu. They will give their support to the people in terms of demonstration dan sebagainya. Tetapi demonstrasi ini bukanlah sesuatu yang dibenarkan oleh kerajaan. Bila dia melanggar dari segi peraturan-peraturan yang dibuat dalam Perlembagaan Persekutuan, maka dia sedikit sebanyak akan menjejaskan suara-suara dan juga sokongan-sokongan tersebut. They will take an action. Ramai pelajar-pelajar juga yang dikenakan tindakan-tindakan. They will take action because they are involved, which we are saying in terms of AUKU for the university student. They cannot involve with politics, for example, but then they involve with politics. So action can be taken to them. Menggunakan klausa-klausa tersebut, maka pemimpin-pemimpin muda, golongan-golongan muda ini tidak mampu lah. But happen to be somehow there's be a double standard. If you support in terms of demonstrate on behalf of the government, no action will be taken to you. But if you demonstrate and protest the government, you go to opposition, action will be taken to you. So that's why I'm saying that issue, enough is enough. That is old time, and we cannot use the attitude anymore. Now we are in the future, and we have a young and energy people. You don't have to be a double standard. You be a leader, then you don't have to be a double standard. You proceed with the ideas that we have. Okay, if it's wrong, either it's from your part or from the opposition part, it will be the same regulation and rule and regulation. Together with what in terms of fine for the COVID-19, for example, if from the government people, maybe it just give you around 1,000 the penalty, but for the other people, so more action will be taken in terms of 10K, for example. Jadi keseluruhannya yang sudah itu sudahlah, kita perlukan satu budaya politik yang baru. Satu budaya politik yang matang, yang tidak menyekat, tetapi kita mendukung hasrat dan juga aspirasi untuk memantapkan dan juga membangunkan negara kita. Kalau tidak, sampai bila pun ini takkan selesai. Kalau individu ini menjadi ini daripada kepimpinan Golkar, maka Golkar akan diberikan ruang yang sangat besar. Maka parti lain akan melihat ini sudah ada double standard. Tetapi kalau kumpulan ini pula yang diberi, tetapi golongan ini dikedekan, maka dia akan ada double standard. Be a politician for all people. I think if you are able to practice that, the whole people will be yours and people will respect you to be a leader. Okay, what do you think?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zam. Maybe the last question from a student. Okay, Barisan Nasional failed in the last election.
Yeah.
What factor that influence the value of Barisan Nasional? Is about there is no strong figure in Barisan Nasional, or maybe other factor?
Okay, thank you very much. The main issues that Barisan Nasional unable to be the government because of Najib as a prime minister at that time, which is related to issues of 1MDB, SRC. Now you can see the High Court of Malaysia already made a decision that he found guilty. And then last few weeks, Najib with his group of people appeal it to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal, 3 out of 3-0. Meaning to say they have 3 judges and 3 of them agree that Najib involved with that particular incident. Okay, so finally you will have another level to appeal in the federal court. So whatever decision will be made by the federal court, that will be the final decision. Okay, so that is the main issue. If not because that issue, I think Barisan Nasional will still remain to be the government.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zam. Thank you very much for your time, for sharing knowledge to our students. Oh, maybe the last, Dinda. Please, Dinda.
Yeah, save the last, save the best for last.
I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
want to
Dinda.
ask.
Okay, please.
Oh, sir, I want to ask about in Malaysia. What's the young generation can enter in government? In Indonesia, we have the rule in 21 years old, we can enter in Dewan.
Yeah.
That's it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Dinda Nurhaliza. Interesting issue. The age previously been urged by Pakatan Harapan. They insist to have the 18 years old, the minimum requirement for them to enter the parliament and to be the member of parliament. So once they be the government, they try to amend the law and make it as a rules and regulation. But as time goes by, after 22 months, then takes time, and finally, lately, okay, already amended the constitution, the age for the youngsters, the minimum requirement is 18 years old. So meaning to say you can just go you can be part of the member of parliament if you've been chosen, and the political party also can nominate you to be one of the candidate for the Malaysian election. So 18 years old. So if you ask me again, either 18 years old is suitable or not, I might have a different answer, because for me, yeah, you can just look at what been practicing in United States. they are giving 18 years old. But you must bear in mind why this United States try to practice it, because nowadays you can see the black are more from the whites. So they are using that age to ensure that the white is still dominant. So in our situation, I think the Malaysia and Indonesia is almost the same in terms of maturity. If you compare to the Europe, if they are 18 years old, you can see they are more mature. Their age is not saying that they are 18. But here, some of the students, if 18 years old, they also still cannot attend the classes, and they just copy and paste the assignment. So if that particular attitude, if you want to be a leader, is very difficult. But somehow, maybe there's some of the students, they manage, they are more mature and they will have the responsibility. But again, politics is different from academic, because as a politician, you need to have experience. People, if they didn't know you, they will not support you. That I mentioned to you earlier. For example, Syed Sadiq as a minister. Even he is minister, he's in terms of giving talks very best in terms of debating. He is one of the student being offered to study in Oxford, but then people will still condemn, mentioning that not experienced, you don't have the experience, you're just a childish. So this attitude sometimes should have been try to manage it, to show to the to this politician that the youngsters actually have a great mind from what they have in their own mind for the old politician. Okay, Dinda, hope to see you in Dewan Pemusyawaratan Indonesia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so good luck, Dinda, for your study. All the best to you and all your friends.
Thank you, sir, for the answer.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zam. I think time is up. So
Yeah.
Thank you for your sharing knowledge about political system in Malaysia, and thank you for your time. And let's close our session with Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.